Hello everyone, welcome to the Weeb initiative. I'm your host, the Weeb. This is the show where every other week I'll be talking about anime, manga, and everything in between. This week I'll be talking about, as this is the last episode of the year 2022, and also the last episode of this first season, I thought I would make something a bit special, maybe a bit different from my usual reviews, and I will actually talk about the manga I'm reading right now. Anime is not really something I keep much track of, because most of the time I just wait for the anime to end so I can binge watch the whole thing. So there's no, let's say, progression to it. There's just the one shot sit and watch it all in one sitting. But manga is a whole nother story, and for the most part, I find so many manga really more interesting than the animes that are coming out right now. So basically what I'm saying is I'll be talking about this is my reading report for the year of 2022 and beginning of 2023. And yeah, let's get to it, because I have like 50 or so manga to talk about here. So basically, the disclaimer, right? All of this manga I will be talking about, they are not finished, either by not fully translated, the story is still ongoing, or something else like a hiatus or anything that could actually happen. Also, another disclaimer, for the sake of YouTube, Discord, and everything else, I will not be talking about where you can get these. Most of these you can get through Amazon, because they are officially translated, but some of these are not officially translated. So you get the idea. Now let's get to it. For the most part, as an introduction, for the most part, the year of 2022, and also because there are a whole lot of manga from other years here. The main themes I followed this year, the years past, is basically enter a site and type in the 3 most important tags, at the very least for me. There is action, romance, and mature or adult, because most of the time you'll find seinen manga and adult manga that isn't straight out hentai. But the idea is to find something more geared towards the older public, because for the most part I'm quite fed up with the normal shonen and shoujo kind of works that come out right now. Although I say that there are a lot of shonen and shoujo here, so it's not much of a rule, as it is more of a preference. And now that I've talked enough about it, let's get to it. So first off, I need to say some other honorable mentions. These are the ones that I know for a fact they have stopped production, either for a whole lot of reasons, and some that I actually don't know why, but they have been stuck in their, let's say, the latest chapter for years now. So the ones I have here, the first one is the most important. It is the anime and the manga that made me actually start watching anime and reading manga, was High School of the Dead. High School of the Dead, unfortunately, we will never see an ending. The author, the mangaka, passed away back in 2016, and the manga has stopped ever since in the 13th volume. I think it was chapter 38. It is one of the the biggest losses I ever had in the manga space, let's say. I cried to this day, man. It was so good. Anyways, getting on with it because there's a long way here. Next one is Builder. Builder is a manhwa more than a manga, so it's a Korean production from what I know. It comes in a somewhat similar vein of Sword Art Online, although the conditions are different and there's not the whole enter the video game and if you die in real life, but it is something near that space, let's say. The correlation between video game and society and being excluded from the world if you are killed in the video game and whatever. It is pretty interesting. It is pretty somewhat confusing, as I remember reading. And from what I know, it's been in hiatus since 2016 also, because I don't know the real cause, but we basically lack, I think, 4 or 5 chapters to end the story, and so that's it. I have 2 more honorable mentions before we go on. XXHolic, that is manga about it is about so many things. It's about Japanese superstition, Taoism, mysticism, and some other stuff. It is pretty stylistic, and it is pretty old at this point. I don't know when the last chapter was written, but the thing is, right, so it was written by Clamp. Clamp was a mangaka group, basically, and for whatever reason, I don't actually know the reason, the group just went their ways. I don't know the reason, but as it basically the group was disbanded, the manga just stopped and went into a indefinite hiatus. There is anime of XXXHolic from, I think, 2006, 2007 maybe, or 2005, it could be, made by IG Production. It is a pretty good anime, it is a pretty good manga. The manga doesn't actually make much sense if you don't know Japanese folklore and superstitions and whatever, but it is a pretty good reference to, let's say, to dive into different sides of the culture. And also there are some lessons to be learned there. It is pretty, let's say, constructive as a means of media. So next up is the last one, Freezing. Freezing is one of my I say one of the ecchi gems of the 2010s. I don't actually remember the actual beginning of the series, but last chapter, I think, was 2015, as the pair who were the mangakas, they just put Freezing into an indefinite hiatus to work in other projects, because at that point I think Freezing was going for upwards of 7 years in publication, and the story was going some weird places. But I really think it is worth reading, just because of the first off, it is just girls fighting and superpowers and whatever. The anime, Freezing has an anime from, I think, 2012 that has a whole lot of ecchi, a whole lot of booba and whatever. It is, I think it's pretty good, but I could see it not being for everyone. But that's not here nor there. So next up, so now that honorable mentions are out of the way, let's get to the reading report as it is. Again, most of this, actually all of this, are not, they did not end. None of the manga I'm talking about here ended, so they are still ongoing for one reason or another. I know for a fact that some of them already ended, but they have not been translated, either officially or not. And some of these will never be officially translated because of the let's say the content. I have some of the manga here have content warnings, much like I did in my Gun X Clover review that nobody listened to. The thing is, some of these get pretty heavy, but we'll get there when we get there. So first off, let's get some out of the way, just to trim up a bit. So for this part, I'm talking about the bigger ones. The bigger ones, I would say, they are more cemented in the community, as they already have an anime, and the manga has been going on for upwards of 7 years plus, or 5 years plus, whatever. And they are pretty famous for one reason or another. So, first one, Ao no Exorcist. It has 2 seasons. I never really watched it, but they all, from what I heard, the anime is actually pretty bad when it comes compared to the manga, because for whatever reason they invented something in the second season to make an ending to the end of season rush and whatever. So it's allegedly pretty bad. In general, I think the story is pretty good. It is about just pretty concise. It's about this one guy who has a brother, and they find out they are actually sons of Satan, but they have to fight Satan, and a lot of things happen, and it is pretty normal shonen stuff. So the main character is that simple-minded glutton, and it's pretty trope-esque. It has all the tropes, it has all the cliches, but it is a pretty good read overall. And that's basically it. It has 2 seasons, but it is one of the bigger ones. Most of the people will know it. So Ao no Exorcist, or Blue Exorcist, whatever the name you know it for. Next one, Owari no Seraph, or Seraph of the End. It's about, it's about a post-apocalyptic world where vampires have taken control of the earth, and so the Japanese royal demon slaying army has to kill vampires. And then there is this whole politics behind the scenes, vampire drama, because some of the vampires are good, some of the vampires are bad, and they're angels and whatever. It is a hodgepodge, a big mess. In general, the story goes some weird places at some points. It is entertaining. I would not say it is I straight out recommend it, because some parts are really just what's happening here, and for the most part that's basically it. Yeah, so Owari no Seraph, or Seraph of the End, pretty good, but not really good. Most of the bigger ones I will talk about, they are hit or miss, let's say. Next one is, and this is my opinion, some people may argue otherwise, but Hida no Are is a bigger manga at this point, because Hida no Are is a story about high school for mercenaries. This is the real concise version, because I have to go through a whole lot of manga still. It has one 12-episode season for the main plot, so Hida no Are, and then there's the spin-off, which has the manga spin-off also, Hida no Are AA or AA, which does not cover Arya. Arya is the main character. She's the main female waifu and whatever. She's a loli. But Hida no Are AA or AA, it does not follow Arya as close. It follows a girl who becomes her apprentice, more or less. It's a pretty, also a pretty entertaining one. The story doesn't take itself too seriously sometimes, because they when you think they are going a bit too far, they drop some kind of comedic relief. So for this reason, I think it's pretty good. And also because they involve superpowers and random military equipment that doesn't actually work and whatever. It is fun. It is fun. Next one, Chainsaw Man. I don't think I need to say anything about Chainsaw Man and why it is big. As the first arc ended, I have not yet read much of the second arc. I think maybe 2 chapters. I don't actually need to talk to you about Chainsaw Man. I already did the review. Let's get going. Next one, and this is the last bigger one I will talk about. It is Spy Family. I don't actually need to talk about much Spy Family because Spy Family is the anime is being done by A1 and has 25 episodes. I'm really certain they will go for another season, 25 episodes more, because it is just good. It is wholesome. It has this really tense undertone in between the wholesomeness, which gives it a really big personality boost, I think. And generally, it is also pretty cute and has some action scenes which are pretty nice. But most of the time, it is wholesome and it is super nice. So those are the big ones. Now, I'll talk about the medium ones. The medium ones have animes, but they are not really cemented, or maybe they are not really famous, let's say. So first off is Aharen-san is Indecipherable. I will not try to pronounce this in Japanese because I will butcher a lot of Japanese later. I kind of stopped reading this. It is not officially dropped, but it is one of those school life comedies, somewhat romantic at some points. It is cute, but the comedy in it, I sometimes find it not too childish, but too simple, I think. And for the most part, I mostly stopped it, more or less. Next one is Fufu Ijo Koibito Miman, or I think the anime was translated to Second-Hand Love or something like that. This one, it pains my heart because it is one of those romances of the choose one category. So there is the main character, there is the girl he likes at the start, and then there's the Gyaru who appears in his life as not stepping stone, but as a partner to try to get to the first girl. And in the going and coming and going of the story, he kind of grows attached to the Gyaru. And I have a thing for Gyarus in manga and anime. I don't actually know why, but that's not the point here. And then the big thing is whether he will stay with the Gyaru or if he will stay with the first girl who is his childhood friend. And it is really cute, and it is really tense, and it is a good old romance. Oh boy. Anyways, it is pretty safe. Also, they don't actually show anything. There is no ecchi, no nothing. It is just down to the ground, down to earth romance and romance only. That's it. Next one, Goblin Slayer. I don't think I need to talk much about Goblin Slayer. I say it's a medium because it's not really famous and people don't actually know the contents and the goings of Goblin Slayer, but it is in the name. I don't actually need to explain it. Goblin Slayer is something I will continue to read until the author gets fed up and ends the story, but I don't think it will come to an end so soon. Just a quick note here about the last one I talked, the Second-Hand Love. There is the anime, the first season of the anime. I don't think they will get the second season, and the manga has not still ended from what I gather. So and I'm holding back on reading it because I'm too tense because they stopped. I stopped at a part that the cliffhanger is too high. Anyways, let's go in. I will skip this one because I will talk about this later. So the next one, Kakegurui. Kakegurui has one season, an anime already, and it is the anime itself. It is pretty stylish. The manga is already pretty stylish. Kakegurui, for those who don't know, it is basically what if school life fused with high-level gambling for your school life, more or less. So you have people that go into debt by gambling, and they become not more or less slaves. They call them pets in the manga, and they play a whole lot of games and they gamble a lot, and it is megalomaniac. It's pretty nice. Also a pretty good manga. Next one, Mushoku Tensei. Mushoku Tensei, I don't actually think I need to talk much about it, but anyways, it is the one isekai, actual isekai, that I look at it and say, yeah, this is doing something different. So the guy gets isekai'd, so he dies in an accident and whatever, and then he gets reborn. But when he gets reborn, he kind of grows up with the mind of an adult. So when he gets to be a kid, right? So at 10 years of age, he becomes a prodigy because he already knows how to read, already knows how to do stuff. And there's magic and fantasy stuff, and there is this whole undertone about his life being so much better now that he can be reborn and knows the value of life. I think towards the later chapters that they are going, he may have forgotten about this, but then they introduced another character to remind him of this. And there's this whole romance, and then there's this whole comedy stuff that interchange one another, because at some point he gets into a romance with a girl, and when the girl dumps him, he becomes impotent. So, and it is pretty funny because the way they portray it is so it's so different from the generic things we see nowadays. And to me, that's enough to say it is a pretty good manga, and also a pretty good anime. I didn't watch the anime actually, but I've heard it is pretty good. Though I suggest the manga. Anyways, next one, Shikimori-san isn't just a cutie. It is a romance, but it is the manga itself. I'm not talking about the anime. The anime has one season. I did not watch it. The manga is mini stories, more or less. So they are concise stories. Towards the later chapters that I'm at, they started making some larger stories. It is not something grand or fortuitous, but it is just, it begins as little tidbits. So it is always so the guy is basically a beta male, and the girl is what if 02 got reincarnated as a normal schoolgirl? And just to add to this point, right, for the first like 10 chapters, I really thought, yeah, the guy just watched Darling in the Franxx and thought, what if they reincarnated as normal people? Because I mean, the guy doesn't look like Hiro, but the girl looks a whole lot like 02. Anyways, that's not the point. The thing is, the manga starts as just basically jokes, and then there's this one punchline that Shikimori does this cool face and does something incredible or to help the guy, and that's basically it for the start. Then they start to develop something. It is a romance, but I would not say it's a normal romance because it is at the later stages, let's say. So just to give some context, the story begins with Shikimori and the guy. I don't actually remember the guy. It's you something. Yuichi, I don't actually remember. They are already dating, so there is no tension between, oh, will they stay together or not and whatever, because it is so pure as a story that there is no tension. They will stay together no matter what. There is no rivals, there is no nothing, and most of the plot revolves around Shikimori being cool and also fragile at some point, which again tells me she's 02 reincarnated, because 02 was just like that. But that's just me. Next one is 37. 37 was at one point described to me as High School DxD, but the story actually makes sense, and the main character is not actually a dumbass. It could be argued that it is that, but I beg to differ. It is so complex at this point because they done so much stuff already. But basically, how do I start this? It is a story about this guy that gets enrolled into a Magi Maga's school, and inside this school there is this group of girls that are the 27 that they each represent one of the 7 deadly sins, and each one of the 7 deadly sins is basically a theme, a theme for magic research, and so each one has something based on the theme, and the powers are defined by that, and then they go and enter hell to fight the Maleblance and Dante's Inferno, and there is a whole lot of references towards anything. And at this point, the story has gone so long that they are actually fighting a god of destruction that is a lolly, because this is a manga, and it is pretty good. It is pretty good. The art's good. The ideas are good. The overall thing is pretty good. The characters and all. It is a more ecchi approach towards the normal shonen stuff that we find. But although I say that, it is not actually ecchi. It is pretty safe. The most you're gonna get for it is maybe steam in the onsen scene or the beach episode and whatever. Not really much about it. Next one, the final. Actually, I skipped one, so I go back to that later. The other medium one is Uzaki-chan Wants to Hang Out. I don't actually need to talk much about it, but it is a wholesome romance about a guy and a girl going to university. So the guy is the senpai, and then the girl is Uzaki-chan, and it is pretty wholesome. It's pretty cute. The comedy is pretty nice also. It is overall pretty fun and comfy. I usually describe it as comfy. It's pretty, I don't know, it's pretty nice to read it, just to read it, because it feels good. So, now that we got through the most of the safe stuff, let's get to the first one with the content warning. Content warning in this case is either because it has a whole lot of violence, it has torture, it has unsolicited intercourse, and you can imagine from that on things get wild. But the first one I will talk about is Hedu the Healer. Hedu the Healer is, for me, one of the most, not incomprehended, but it is a good manga and a good anime, because it is the power fantasy manga and anime at this point that actually has main character that really embodies the power fantasy theme. So basically, just to give the context, the story is about this isekai world, so the fantasy world with the video game things inside it, so levels and whatever. And so there's this guy that is the main character that he goes through puberty, and when they go through puberty, they basically get selected by the universe as heroes, and they learn an ability. They get a superpower, more or less. The guy gets the power of healing, but the catch here is to heal someone. You, the healer, feel the pain. You see what happened to the person and feel it in your own body. So we later discovered that healers in general are basically slaves, because it is emotionally and physically destroying of a job to actually heal someone, because if they get their arm chopped off and you regrow it, you feel your arm get chopped off, and you do this twice a day, and basically you go mad, basically. And so the guy gets abused and whatever, and the story basically starts when they get to the final boss, the Demon Lord, and go find the Philosopher's Stone and whatever, basically the wish spell. And when he could heal everyone in his party, he basically does a Houdini, gets the Philosopher's Stone and resets the world. And his objective is to fuck with everyone who fucked him in his last life. And the big point, the one thing that actually makes me read this with gusto, the guy is a psychopath, but he never backs down. He never regrets anything. And to me, that's the embodiment of the power fantasy. He knows that he's powerful. He knows that he's doing something bad, and still that doesn't actually move him one bit. He does not go back in anything. And to me, that is just good for the genre of this manga. It is pretty good. Again, this is the first one with the content warning, so it has a whole lot of violence, torture, and yeah, whatever. From this point on, I have 35 what I call niche mangas. Some of them are pretty bad, some of them are mediocre, and some of them are really, really good. I unfortunately have not classified it as pretty good, bad, and so we will get through it through hell and back. Let's begin with Blush DC. Blush DC is a really mature romance. A content warning on this one also, because it has a whole lot of unsolicited encounters and also some abuse and a whole lot of messed up stuff. It is really down to earth kind of story. It is pretty dramatic, and in general, it is pretty hard to read. I will say most people will not like this, and for the most part, I like it in that curiosity way. It is good, but certainly not something that you will want to keep reading for much at a time. Next one, After School Beechcraft. I have this one saying about this one. The name is terrible, okay? The name is terrible, but it has nothing to do with it. It's about a Gyaru who wants to be a veterinarian, and then she finds this teacher at school because she's failing her grades, and then the guy gets like, yeah, help me with this thing and maybe pass it. And the guy is a magus, and she becomes his apprentice. And from then on, the story basically becomes Ancient Magus Bride, but at school. I say that, but it is pretty good. It's pretty wholesome. Next one, Ane Naru Mono. I don't actually remember the English name for this one. It is, oh boy, really concise stuff. It's about this boy who has no family at this point because his parents passed away, and all his relatives basically shoved him from one relative to the next. And to a point, he goes to this house of this one uncle, and basically he with no intent summons a demon, and the demon becomes his older sister. But from that point on, a whole lot of other things try to attack him and whatever, and the sister needs to protect him. It is a pretty interesting story, a pretty interesting setting, but also multiple times you'll find that all the stories end with this wholesome note and an undertone of, let's say, a cold feet, more or less. So it's all wholesome, but you know that there is something wrong with it. But then again, it is a really niche manga. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. The art's pretty nice. Next one, Candy and Cigarettes. So this one is pretty out there. It is basically about a little girl and this retired cop. That the girl is basically an assassin, and the guy is contracted as the cleaner, more or less. And basically they are contracted by the Japanese government to find this, they call it the Greater Bond, which is this organization that basically the Illuminati and whatever. The art style is pretty unique. It is somewhat charming. The dialogue is pretty good, and it's just nice. Has some action, some wholesomeness, and overall pretty good. Next one is Chichi Chichi. This has a content warning because it has a whole lot, almost hentai, but not showing anything. The content warning here is reader discretion, more or less. It is written by the same guy who does Kobayashi-san Shinome Dragon. It is about this guy who is a mangaka, and he ends up with this girlfriend who is really taller than him. She's really beautiful and whatever, and the guy is addicted to boobs. And basically it is a whole lot of comedy around boobs and paizuri, and yeah, that's basically it. Next one, another one with content warning, but this one is pretty mediocre. It's called Desire Pandora. Is basically softcore hentai. That's the best definition I have to it, because the story is non-existent. Basically, it's about this one guy who has this childhood friend, I think, and the girl is in love with him, but he does not own up to it, and he's basically a pervert, and she's basically a pervert, and for one reason or another, someone ends up summoning a female demon that ends up living with him, and then appears a witch who lives with the girl, and it is just softcore hentai again. Really, really mediocre, but still here. That's basically it. I don't have anything else to say. Next one. Oh boy. Here it goes. Dungeon Kurashi no Moto Yusha. So basically, there's this one guy who is the hero of the rain. We are in this isekai world. So the guy is a normal guy, but he has some kind of special skill and this badass sword, and he is the hero of the rain and whatever. But then after he saves the world, I don't remember if I think it's the king. The king comes after him to kill him because he's a liability. Then he joins up with another friend of his old party that helped him save the world, and they basically inherit or invade the dungeon of the demon lord that they killed to basically refurbish and turn it into a home. And there is this whole, basically It's a story about I don't know if people getting by, but methods are debatable, and basically all the characters are morally ambiguous. Let's say a content warning because there is some this one that I can't determine the free range hentai, that it is a manga or an anime. This guy's a manga that it doesn't come out as a hentai, but as the story progresses, you clearly see that it is hentai. And this one has a whole lot of sex. Next one. It is pretty good though. It's pretty good. This one has a really heavy content warning, and I will butcher this, and basically I will tell you the English name also. Fukushu o Koi Negao Saikyo Yusha. So it's the hero who seeks revenge shall exterminate with darkness. Terrible name. The names are way too long at this point, and it is a trend that I hate, but it's something that I gotta live with. So basically, we again isekai world and whatever, but this is the power fantasy of revenge. Basically, there is the main character who is the hero of the rain again. You see that I tend towards some themes. It is the isekai and the hero of the ring, whatever. It's not really my aim, but these are the manga that appear to me in search of my text. So bear with me on this one. So the guy is the hero of the ring, and after he saves the world, he not only the king comes after him, but his whole party and everyone who knew this guy except for one person that was basically his sister, mother, whatever, I don't actually remember. Everyone at the point that he's going to be executed turns out to be both corrupt and evil, and straight out just mad. Everybody's crazy in this manga. And so the guy dies. He goes to the limbo, more or less, the purgatory, and he comes up to the goddess and say, "Yeah, I want revenge, and you're gonna give me powers because for one reason or another you are a goddess, but you are pervert." And this is the first chapter of the manga, and she's actually a pervert because she's for some reason in love with him because he's the hero. Doesn't actually get explained anywhere, but the thing is, he gets reborn, and with darkness powers and whatever, darkness magic, and then he next to his revenge, and oh boy, it's horrific. In some points, think about I will use this example again. Think about Quentin Tarantino Hostel. I think it's Hostel, the name of the movie. But think of it times 10. And some of the tortures are really, really not only frightening, but choose the spine. It is a pretty good manga if you like the power fantasy and the getting things right kind of deal. Not for everyone, I'll grant you that, but it's still pretty good. Next one, also content warning because it has a whole lot of violence and again unsolicited intercourse. This is one from written by Yamaguchi Mikoto, who also did Gun X Clover, and it is one of the actual isekais that I really, really like. It's called Game of Familia, Family War, something like that. A Game of Familia. Before I forget, I will leave the Excel spreadsheet with all the the manga I'm talking about in the Discord. Join the Discord. This one is again a power fantasy, but it, as I said in my Gun Explorer review, that Yamaguchi Mikoto, he has this one thing that all his characters are pretty clever. The main character is always the most clever, but all of his characters are pretty clever. And the guy in this one, he's just the mastermind behind the mastermind. You think of playing 4D chess, the guy is playing underwater 8D turbo chess with everyone just to save his family. And there's some revelations that come out later that are really, really messed up, and it just adds up to the drama and the whole scenario. It's pretty nice. Next one. Godere Bishoujo Nakuhara Sora. Basically, this one is a comedy somewhat mixed with an action manga, but the action is pretty light. It's one of those that it is straight up comedy, so the powers are just jokes on manga tropes and whatever. It is pretty funny. I find it pretty nice. It comes in the vein much like Sabagebu, but in another form, let's say. And to me, it's pretty nice, pretty funny. One of the quotes that one of the characters make, it's to the first thing you need to write a manga is lust. You have to be in love with your manga in a sexual. It's something like that. My man, it's so nice. It's really good. Next one, Gunbread Sisters. I added a content warning to this one, but it doesn't actually need one. Debatable, because the first chapters are pretty more heavy. Also, one addition to this one, I think the latest chapter was uploaded in 2016 from what I could find, and I don't know if it has an official translation or if the scans just stopped, but that's just it. It is not completed. Gunbread Sisters. My god, man. It's about a world where it's much like Hellsing, more or less. So the church has military power to fight monsters and whatever. And there is vampires. There is half vampires that they call, I don't actually remember, Nephilim, I think. There are werewolves and other kinds of creature and whatever. And so the gist is the church has to fight vampires, but then there is this one girl in the church that is the main character, who knows that the church is corrupt and that monsters are in cahoots with the church to control the population and whatever. And she wants just to avenge her mother, because there's a whole lot of things that happen. But the thing is, right, so Nephilim, that is the crossing between a human and a vampire, are pretty rare because they are, I don't actually remember if they are called Nephilim, but that's not the point. Today, that's not the point. Basically, they are hunted down because they either become vampire hunters or become super powerful vampires. Basically, the girl finds one of them that is also another girl, so it has a whole lot of Yuri vibes, a whole lot, and really nice fights, really nice art style, really, really good manga in general, pretty nice to read, but it is basically stuck at this point in 2022. Next one, Happy Negative Marriage. Oh man, it's a drama mixed with romance. It's so hard to say, because it is from another author. I already read one of his mangas, the same author who did, for those who know, Nanato Kaoru. He wrote also this one. The drama basically is this guy who's basically a factory worker, and he's single, and he's like 35. He's turning 30. I don't actually remember. It is something like that. The midlife crisis of being too old to find someone, and you still are single. And for one reason or another, he gets involved with this girl because he goes into marriage interviews. I don't actually know if these things happen. Apparently in Japan they do. Yeah, I can't check that. Either way, so he gets involved with this girl, and the girl really likes him, and they start a really nice relationship, and it is really wholesome and cute and wholesome, and oh my god, it's so nice. And then I don't actually remember what happens, but then he fucks up. It is something about when she's expecting him to ask her to marry him, he just backs down, and you go like, you motherfucker, why did you do that? And then the whole thing starts crumbling down from the sides, and it is horrible. But that's the fun of it. The drama is the thing that keeps it rolling. I'm not even making sense anymore of my words, but anyways, next one. This one is pretty bad. Himekishi ga classmate. So really really concise. This is another free range hentai isekai setting. This guy and another girl, I think the whole classroom at the start is transported to another world. I don't actually remember. The beginning is so long ago that I have read it that I don't actually remember it. But anyways, guy is transported to his isekai. He becomes a slave master. Again, a slave master. And the girl becomes a knight. And so he goes and enslaves every girl he sees, more or less. But then he proves to be, let's say, a redeemable master to care about all his subjects and whatever. Kinda meh. Pretty, I would say it is pretty derivative. But either or, I don't care. It is free range hentai, and at this point in time I've read so much of it that I don't really ask anymore. I think it comes out one chapter per month, and I just read it, and yeah. Next one. Yeah, this one is pretty bad also. Hirasaka Hinako ga ero kawaii koto o ore dake shiteiru. Oh boy, this one's pretty terrible actually. So basically, it's a romance about this guy and a girl that are childhood friends, and at some point in their life they basically meet a witch, and so for some reason they enter this contract with the witch that they cannot love someone else until they become adults, so 18 years in age. Otherwise they will never find love or something like that. And then a whole lot of stuff starts happening, but the main point, I don't think I will drop it out of principle, but the girl is pretty annoying. She's just not redeemable in my eyes. That's basically it. Next one. Mao no Hajimekata. Or basically how to build a dungeon. I think that's the name in English. So much like the other one, the Dejo Fushu Yusha, I think that's the name. This is the original one I started reading way back. Basically, there's this mysterious guy who is really old, and then he finds this one little bottle that is his phylactery, for those who play D&D. And he plants it inside a dungeon and starts to grow a dungeon, and doesn't actually becomes clear for the reader, but his plan is to grow the dungeon for whatever reason. And then he becomes this almighty overlord of the dungeon, so he recruits monsters to live inside of it, and he depends on them living inside the dungeon, so he gets some resources from some monsters and some from the others and whatever. He contracts demons and he fights heroes and whatever. It's a free range hentai. Also, this one is a really explicit and going to bed and doing the deed. But the interesting thing is he is also pretty clever. He strategizes 100 steps forward and whatever. It is pretty nice to read just to see. It is pretty interesting either way. That's basically it. I don't actually have much to say to it, but it's just something I read right now. Next one, Ikusakoi. This one is pretty wholesome. So there's this whole thing in the universe that Itsadryu, which is the tree of life in Norse mythology, is kind of dying, and Odin needs his daughters, the Valkyries, to grow up and develop themselves to find out what the hell is happening and to fix up Ixadru, basically. So he finds this one human that is bullied and whatever, and basically he becomes the lover of the. I think there are 13 Valkyries, 9. I don't actually remember. I think there are 9 Valkyries. Because to develop the Valkyries, they need to do what they call vow love in the manga, which are these activities for couples. There are ones that are pretty risky, and then there are the ones that are pretty trope inspired. So going on a date, kissing. I think there's one of the clearing the ears in the lap pillow and whatever. It's a whole lot of wholesome romance stuff, but there are also fights and big monsters, whatever. Art style is pretty nice, and that's basically it for Ikusakoi. Next one. This one, I know for a fact that it was made for a Twitter user made this. I don't actually know if it was serialized at all. But anyways, Moe-chan wa Kinishinai. It is just comedy about this one girl who doesn't actually give a fuck about anything that happens to her in the most comic way possible. So she just is not phased about anything, and that's basically it. From what I've seen, it only has 7 chapters. I don't actually know if there are any more. But anyways, again, I don't actually know if it was serialized or not. The next one I'll be talking about is Oshiki Execute. It is... I don't know, man, how do I describe this? It's basically... oh boy. The guy, for some reason, meets this magical lolly that gives him the power to punish people that are... they call it bad kids because apparently bad behavior is toxin from an evil goddess and whatever, and so his work is basically to purge this kind of miasma from people that act bad. It's saying like that, it sounds pretty boring or pretty bad, but it's actually pretty cute. I can't say really because the translation stopped some years ago, so yeah. Next one is just called Ouch. It is basically Japanese bike gangs fight, or basically just delinquents fight, and that's basically it. It has a pretty nuanced story as to the drama between the gangs and all, but it's interesting, but also not much to say. Next one is a pretty good one, actually, at the very least to me. Sekai no Owari no Encore, or Encore of the End of the World. It is basically a fantasy world, so not so much isekai world like the many others I already talked about. there's this guy who's in this hero academy that is said to be the descendant of the great hero who saved the world 100 years before, but the guy has absolute no talent and no redeeming qualities. But at some point, something happens that the party of his ancestor come to him, basically, because they are. So there was the ancestor, dragon lady, an angel, and a devil, and so they all come together to find the core of the world and save the world, because apparently something is trying to destroy the world and whatever. It is pretty simplistic, but the art's pretty nice, and the action is actually pretty nice too. The characters are somewhat... they have actually personalities, they are real characters, so it's pretty nice. Next one, Sensei no Yasashi Koroshi Kata. This one has stopped being translated a whole lot of years ago, a long time ago, 2016, I think 2015, maybe even earlier. But basically, a girl is basically taught how to be an assassin by her homeroom teacher after school. So she gets supplementary lesson in killing, and this is a mild content warning because some of their targets are actual cycles and some horrific things appear and all. So it's a lot of gore, a lot of dismemberment and whatever. So yeah, there's that. Next one, it is on the title. It's called Sex and Dungeon. Sex and Dungeon. I will not explain anything else. The name already says it all. It has a content warning because the name is that, and because it does happen inside the manga. I will not talk anything more about it. Next one is Sommelier. Sommelier is written by Arakijo. Arakijo, I don't actually have his backstory, but he also wrote Bartender, who's getting an anime in the near future, I think 2023, maybe the first season or the second season of 2023, I don't actually remember right now. But Sommelier is basically a story. It's not a drama per se, but it is basically a novel, some chronicles about a girl who's a sommelier in Japan, having lived in France and studied wines and champagnes and all the variations and all. It is like Bartender. If you ever read by Bartender, it is pretty informative. It is really, you are there to see the story, but also to see the stories that the author relates to, the drinks, in the case of Bartender, and the wines and the champagnes in the case of Sommelier. From what I know, it was never officially translated, and the translation stopped, so I don't actually know where it actually is in this purgatory of content. But I really wish someone would take the reins to restart the translation, because I really wanted to see it. Bartender is so good, and if Sommelier is something if it translates to other works of the same author, Sommelier should be really good too. Next one, Suimito wa shoujo ni kajirareru. Basically, this one is very nuanced in some ways. So, at some point in, I don't know, 2021, 2020, I don't actually remember, I had this realization that I just thought, man, all the Yuri I ever read was pretty bad, so let's try again to find something new. And this is it. This is a content warning, actually. It has a lot of sex. It has Yuri, It has romance. It has a lot of drama. One of the side notes, from what I gather, it is being translated as it's being written. So, and why is that? Because it is not actually a manga. It is a webtoon. Doesn't actually change much. Changes presentation overall, but the content is still there. The art style is pretty reminiscent of other webtoons if you are into that, and overall it's pretty dramatic. And the last few chapters that got released were really heavy, but goddamn, it's good. It's good. It's Yuri. It has a bit of sex, has drama and romance, and to me that's nice. Next one is Kekon Yubi wa no Monogatari. I have just this one definition for this one that I think encapsulates a lot, actually. This is Lord of the Rings if it was written by a Japanese author to a manga. And if you read it, you will get it. Basically, main character meets a girl, finds out that the girl actually is a princess on another world that's the world of fantasy and whatever. The guy follows her to the other world and becomes this kind of to-be hero. So he has to gather all the princes and gather all the rings for each of the races. So you can see the connection to, the inspiration to Lord of the Rings. But it is pretty wholesome. It's cute. And the action is meh, but it is still a good read. Overall, the interactions between the characters are pretty good. And that's more or less it. Let's go to the next one. Oh boy, this one is prime time me. It's called Tamaro. It is, oh boy, how do I say that? So basically, there is this reality show that there are like contestants that are all females, and they try to seduce a guy to marry them, and the guy is always filthy rich. The idea is that the main character in this manga, she just went there thinking, yeah, this is gonna be easy. I'll just get the money, marry the guy, whatever, and get the money. Yay, get platinum in life and whatever. The thing is, when she gets there to the show, she finds out that actually there are all the girls, the other contestants, have strange and murky past. So one is convicted for assassination, one is the Widowmaker and whatever. And so it is messed up. Side note, this is also written by Yamaguchi Mikoto, so it's pretty messed up. I think I already said it about this one, but I will say it again. Content warning, this has, from what I remember, not so much, but a bit of sex and nudity and not so much violence, but still there's some. Next one. This is one I already shouted out in one of the episodes in season 1, but nevertheless I have to shout it out every time I can. It's the 100 Girlfriends That Really Love You. This manga is awesome. It is what I call the meta comedy of the high school life rom-com. It is so funny, and yet it is so wholesome and so cute. But oh my god, the guy who writes it and the artist, they're really not, oh boy, they got the spirit to do it. It is a masterpiece in meta comedy. I would say I laugh out loud from some of the girls that come up, some of the things that oh boy, one of the highlights is the phrase, stuck between a whack and a cringe place, and I was like, yeah, this is a really good manga. When you get that kind of translation, that's the thing. That's the thing right there. Really good. This is outright recommend. Really nice to read. The next one I will skip because I have to present with the one I already skipped. Next one, right? So it has a long ass title. I don't actually have the title in English. I just have it in Japanese. I don't actually remember the whole title in English, but it is a betrayed S-rank hero seeks revenge or something like that. It is somewhat derivative. It is in the same vein as Redo the Healer, but it is a lot more wholesome in the way that he does things. So the guy is really more calm, more down to the ground. And also because the circumstances are not really as brought up as in Redo the Healer. But it's still somewhat competent. I still read it because, yeah, that's how things go. And the guy is still powerful. He does not back down until now, to where I stopped. So for all I care, it could get worse, but still it's pretty competent. So let's go to the next one. Vampires, My Fellow Vampires. I don't know if this is actually the Japanese name, but the English name is this one. Vampires, Yuri, and a drama about throwing life away and trying to keep alive and something like that. If I say anything more, I think I will spoil too much. So that's that. If you're gonna read it, read it. It is Yuri and has vampires. That's all I'm gonna say. Alright, next one. Also another long ass title, but English title is basically, let's see if I can. Though young people recoil from entering the black magic industry, I found its treatment of employees quite good when I entered it, and the president and familiar are cute too, so everything is awesome. Now imagine this written in English, translated from Japanese. How can you write a title so long? Anyways, this is wholesome and really relatable if you are entering the workforce right now, which I basically am more or less. And yet, I don't know, maybe some people may not like some parts, but overall it's pretty nice. It's pretty wholesome, pretty cute. The art style is nice. The stories they tell are really tame, although they are really relatable overall. And it's just nice. Next one, Yankee JK Kuzuhara-chan. This one, it's pretty nice, though I have let it stock up in chapters so I can read it all. Basically, there's this guy in the school. He gets bullied. One of the baddest delinquents comes and rescues him because whatever. And then they start to become friends and whatever. And eventually there's this romantic pressure, and you know what goes from there. Again, I love Gyaros in manga and anime. The girl is cute, the story is pretty cute, and overall, it's quite nice. Next one, Yukine-chan no Kano Goko. So, I already mentioned it, but this one is really reminds me a lot of Nanato Kaoru. And the premise is somewhat the same. So the girl wants some thrill, the guy is just taken for a ride, and they do naughty things in school grounds, basically. Not being sex. It was mostly walking nude in the hallways or whatever. And that's basically it. It's somewhat wholesome, but somewhat boring at some points. Anyways, so I'll talk about the two I skipped earlier. and they are the crown jewel of the collection. They are both not recommended as from the base because they have content warnings on all sides. So again, extreme violence, torture, some explicit horrific stuff, again, unsolicited intercourse, and everything can go there. The first one is Murcielago. Murcielago is bat in Spanish, and also a Lamborghini, I think, which appears in the manga. So basically the premise is that there is this girl who's a psychopath, and she killed a lot of people, and she's going to death row. But then the government steps in and says, yeah, so we got a whole lot of psychos out there, and we need another psycho to combat the psychos because she basically understands them. And if she goes against us, we just shoot her and it's done. And basically that's it. But then again, the psychos are really, really psychopathic. Some of the I would not say monsters, but some of the things that happen later are really grotesque. Some may say that it's ugly, it's not good, but I think it's really nice. The action is good, characters are good, the whole thing is a masterpiece. And now for the last one, the one who really started me liking this kind of more violent approach to manga, and this, let's say, getting outside the realm of shonen and things being safe for TV. Unironically, it is called Trash, and this manga is awesome. It's about two girls who are assassins. They work for the mafia, but they are basically contractors for one specific Yakuza family that is now run by a schoolgirl because her parents passed away. And from then on, when you find out the backstories of these girls, you see some horrific stuff being done to them. At this point, from the parts that are translated, from what I know, there's no official translation. I would not expect something like this to be officially translated in any capacity, because I doubt there is a real market for this in the West, because bloody hell, it is so violent, so horrific. It has explicit scenes of torture and oh boy, it's terrible. But at the same time, it's really, if you like this kind of stuff, it's really nice. And for me, at the very least, I like when authors have the liberty to actually show it all off, go all out, you know. And although it's horrific, I think it's part of the story. And Trash for me is one good manga, but again, I don't recommend neither Trash nor Murcielago to anyone. If you want to try it. I think Murcielago is basically more palatable. Trash at some points get really dark and really explicit, but that's just me. So now, after talking about the mangas I'm reading for 1 hour and a half, I'll just wrap it up and then see you in the next year. But basically, I just wanted to say that's the collection, the things I'm reading right now. I will make available a spreadsheet with all the names and the things I'm reading in the Discord. Join the Discord. Please like, share, subscribe. Thank you again for listening. I see you next year. I hope you stick around. Bye.